Mágat Caorlaach, and thank you all for attending today. And I suppose I just want to start by sharing with you, and this is kind of a typical message, you know, somebody sent to me, "Oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't put into words how grateful I am. You've restored my security, my safety, my sanity. You've done for me and my family is beyond words. I could barely eat, I could barely sleep. I had lost all sense of my own self-security. You've restored it." And that's somebody who was renting, was on a housing list for 7 years, and through your work and the people who work with you, their tenancy has been secured. I had very little to do with it. I want to thank the public officials who have worked with me, who have responded to the queries that I've raised, but I got to receive those nice messages. But it's you and all of you that do that work. And it makes a difference, and it's making a real difference in people's lives. And I really appreciate it, and I want you to know that it is appreciated. Brendan Kenny is mentioned in your report, and I think it's really appropriate that we acknowledge him. Actually, I was probably one of the councillors going to him back in 2018 that was saying to him, "Brendan, I've got a family, they're on a housing list, they're in a rental property in Cabra, which was originally a local authority home. It's being sold. It'll cost €70,000 to put them into a family hub for a year. Why won't the local authority buy it? You haven't met your target yet this year." And he did, to be fair to him. He was always pragmatic. And I want to acknowledge the service that he provided as a public servant and all the public servants who have learned from him and continue that great work and that tradition. There's roughly 1,000 families and individuals that have secured their home. Not all of them have been in Dublin Central, thankfully, and the majority of it is in Dublin, the homelessness, and the RTB report tells us that. But I suppose my first question to you is that it is a nightmare for anybody to get a notice to quit at the moment because of the supply shortages. So my first question, I guess, is for the DRHE maybe. Can you tell me how many homeless people have been referred to Garda stations? Did you refer any this week or last week? How many will you refer next week?
Can I answer straight away?
Yes, please,
okay.
Ms. Hayes, yeah.
Yes, thanks. Senator, it's a straightforward answer. None is the answer. We haven't referred a family to a Garda station at any point. The last time a family I'm aware of would be 2018, was referred by an NGO to a Garda station, but we haven't referred any families to a Garda station since that time, and nor have we had any need to.
Okay. And then can you also answer, so if somebody gets a notice to quit over the weekend or out of hours, what happens?
Our service works from 10 to 10, but I would say to people is that in general we want early engagement where at all possible. So we don't expect necessarily families to arrive, you know, at the very last minute out of hours, either on a Saturday or a Sunday. So if someone has a notice of termination that falls on a Saturday or a Sunday, we usually like to keep that emergency service for anything, literally for emergencies. Other than that, if you're, you know, you may as well come, you know, we may as well place you the week before it falls. So if someone's engaged with us early, we'll start planning on their, and there's no other prevention available, and we need to place them in emergency accommodation, we will do it the week before their notice falls due.
Yeah. And sorry, Anne-Marie.
I suppose just to provide reassurance for any tenant that receives a notice to quit, the first thing the Housing Authority does is offer advice and support, and that should be at the very early stages of following their receipt of that notice. So we can offer that advice and support very early on. There are options available, and we may look at an alternative HAP letting. That's one option. An offer of housing support depending on their social housing need and their length of time on the list. Obviously the tenant in situ acquisition, and it's a last resort in terms of emergency accommodation. So that early approach to the Housing Authority is essential, as Mary just mentioned, and the emergency accommodation is very much the last stage of a process, but there are many alternatives before then, and we'd encourage tenants to get in touch before they reach that last date that you mentioned.
Okay, can I ask another question, just in terms of, you mentioned the challenges then of the tenant in situ, housing has so many challenges in every respect, but one of the challenges, I guess, why would a landlord sell? Like if a landlord is selling already, why would they sell to the local authority? Why wouldn't they just go on, put it on the market and sell to the highest bidder?
Yeah, Senator, there's a couple of reasons for that. I suppose
One, excuse me, the landlord obviously has a relationship with the tenant, so they want the tenants to see them stay in the property. They may be a tenant for 10, 15 years in some cases, so they may have a wish to see the family that's living in the property continue to live in the property. The second reason is you have security of transaction with a local authority. So sometimes if you're purchasing a property, you might be in a chain and you might be waiting on somebody else to sell and somebody else to sell. So when you enter into engagement with a local authority and we get to the negotiation phase, you know that A, the money is there, and B, that the want and the will is there to acquire the property. And third and most simply is, it does also save on the estate agent fees for the landlord, that they can come straight to the local authority. So there is a small financial reason as well. But those are generally the reasons.
Great, thank you. Can I ask one more question? Sure, yeah. And I suppose this question is to the department. The housing numbers, the housing supply numbers, how confident is the department that the local authorities are ramping up to increase supply, commensurate with the Housing for All targets?
Thank you, Deputy. I think the evidence of the last few years is very encouraging. So if we look at data for 2021, the supply that was added to the social housing stock was just over 9,100. In 2022, we're just waiting on the final statistical data, but we would expect that to be of the order of about 10,000 across building acquisition and lease. And for 2023, we're looking at targets of about 11,500 to 12,000. So across those 3 years, you're looking at a gross addition to social housing stock of the order of 30,000 units. So I think that's very encouraging. And we can see the build element of that continuing to increase. So as we look at the pipeline, we can see that local authorities now are beginning to put a strong pipeline in place. We are putting new measures in place to support them through land acquisition. And we're also looking at particular measures to accelerate delivery. So towards the end of last year, the Minister was in a position to support local authorities with some land legacy debt, and linked to that, we have a programme of accelerated delivery. So I think taking the combination of all of the initiatives that are in place, we're quite confident that it's heading in the right direction.
Okay, Gurmagad.